Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really unique sixth grade English lesson. It starts out with the basics of good writing, the usual stuff. But it ends up somewhere totally different, with a big statement on morality. So let's break down how it connects those two dots.
Right out of the gate, the lesson hits you with this quote. It's pretty intense, right? This is a huge signal that we're going way beyond just nouns and verbs today. This is all about the real-world power our words actually have.
So, where does a lesson like this even begin? Well, it starts with the fundamentals, this idea that authors are kind of like artists and their words are the paint. This first part is all about getting a feel for the author's craft. Yeah, we're starting on some pretty familiar ground here for anyone who's taken an English class. We're just breaking down how a writer picks and chooses specific words to make you see something in your head or to make you feel a certain way. Okay, let's pop open that toolkit and see what we're working with. The lesson really hones in on two main things. First, the specific tricks and devices that authors use, and second, the overall feeling or atmosphere that those devices create. So the lesson focuses on four key tools. You've got your simile, which compares things using like or as. Then there's a metaphor, which does the same thing but just comes right out and says it. Personification is when you give human qualities to something that isn't human. And finally, hyperbole. That's just a fancy word for exaggeration to make a point. These are really the building blocks for everything else in the lesson. And all those tools we just talked about, they all work together to build one big thing, the mood. It's the vibe of the story, Is it tense? Is it happy? Mysterious? The author is carefully and intentionally building that feeling for you, the reader. All right, so it's one thing to know what the tools are, but it's another thing entirely to see them in action, right? So now the lesson switches gears and asks students to apply these ideas to a short piece of text. Just listen to this passage about a kid named Jabari. Wow. You can almost feel the tension in the room, can't you? The language here is doing some serious heavy lifting to put us right there in that classroom with him. The lesson immediately points out the two similes that are creating so much of that feeling. You have the classroom feeling like a drum, and his heart thudding like a second rhythm. See, those aren't just simple descriptions, they're like little injections of pure anxiety into the scene. So, with a pounding classroom and a thudding heart, the lesson asks students to put a label on it. What's the mood here? What feeling are all these tools building towards? And the answer, of course, is B, nervous and tense. It's a direct result of the words the author chose. But the analysis doesn't just stop with the general vibe. It actually goes a level deeper. Next, the lesson asks students to find the exact moment of internal conflict. Where in this short paragraph is the character's inner struggle the most obvious? And the answer is just brilliant. It's that final sentence. This isn't just about feeling nervous anymore. This is about action and consequence. He did something. He struck the first beat. But the result, that echo, had a weight he just wasn't ready for. That, right there, is the very definition of internal conflict. So, up to this point, everything we've seen is pretty much a solid standard English lesson. But this is where it all pivots. This is where the lesson connects the technical skill of writing to a much, much bigger idea, moral responsibility. This quote is the key. It comes from another part of the lesson, and it's the bridge that connects everything. It says, flat out, that being a good writer isn't just a craft, it's a duty, a responsibility to use that power for a very specific moral purpose. The curriculum basically says words can be three things. They can be tools that you build with, weapons that you hurt with, or seeds that you plant for the future. The message is crystal clear. Words are never neutral. They always do something. So what's the big idea driving all of this? This final section really pulls back the curtain on the core philosophy that shapes not just this one worksheet, but the entire curriculum it's a part of. And here's the context for everything. The lesson comes from the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learners series. I mean, the name itself gives you the entire philosophical framework, connecting everything from similes to the moral duty of a writer. And the central argument really boils down to this very clear choice. On one side, it presents education all by itself as something that will ultimately cause harm. But on the other side, it frames education that's integrated with a biblical moral framework as the only path to peace of mind. And to back up this philosophy, the source material points directly to the Bible.
This passage from Romans is laid out as the foundation for their whole educational approach, making a direct link between a spiritual mind and a peaceful one.
And that brings us to our final thought here. We've seen not just what this 6th grade lesson is teaching, but why it's teaching it that way. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. How much does the ultimate purpose behind a lesson change the very nature of what's being taught?